Hello, I'm Matt Lapine, and this is the Screencast Assignment. My name is Matt Lapine. Like I said, I'm from Elma, Michigan. I'm a junior here at Elma College. I'm an IPHS major with a track in clinical exercise physiology. I'm also a business minor, a member of the football team, a brother of the Delta Gamma Tau fraternity, and goal for me would be to own a gym targeted for wounded veterans and people with special needs. Criterion Reference Test. This test is an assessment and measures performance based off predetermined criteria found in the majority of schools across the country. It evaluates what has been learned based off of the previous curriculum. A formative assessment. Formative assessment is a check for understanding during the learning process. A test for individual parts, kind of like an example would be a weekly quiz. It identifies strengths and weaknesses, and it's very low stakes. A summative assessment. Summative assessment, a good example of that would be a final exam. It is all of the formative assessments put together into one large exam. It's a final evaluation of students' performance with pretty high stakes. And a good example to kind of put in your head is the snowman figure. The snowman being all the separate individual parts of the formative assessments, and the whole thing itself is a summative assessment. Triangulation. Triangulation validates data using two or more sources of evaluation tools. It gives an accurate portrayal of performance, and one test alone might not give accurate results. So triangulation uses observation, conversations, products, and all the different testing into one because it'll be more accurate that way. The Brigance Reading Comprehension Test. This test is used to assess grade level in reading. There is a separate packet for the student and another one for the teacher. The teacher is given exactly what to say to proctor the test towards the students. It comes with complete directions on what to say and what to do. The student is given a packet with passages to read and questions that follow referring back to that passage. Students will read the passage silently, and the teacher will then ask the student questions, and the student will give their best answer. The student must perform 4 out of 5 or 80% to move on. And this picture is an example of a Brigance test, one of the tests. So interpretation of the Brigance Reading Comprehension Test. So I did my assessment on a student, and I found that he had a second grade reading level. And as you can see from the graph right here that I made, that he scored a 5 out of 5 on the primer, 5 out of 5 in first grade, 5 out of 5 in upper first grade, 5 out of 5 in lower second grade, 4 out of 5 in upper second grade, and as soon as we got to lower third grade, it started to drop. So he went to 3 out of 5, and then upper third grade, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, etc., and so on. I noticed that he had trouble comprehending the story as the passages became longer, and he also had trouble pronouncing certain words and bigger and harder words specifically. So after the second grade is when he started to score the 3 out of 5 and the 1 out of 5, as I previously mentioned. So that's where I was able to find that he had a second grade reading level. For planning instruction, these results were useful because I can plan a specific instruction around pronunciation of words as well as comprehension. I now know where he is at and how to tailor his instruction effectively towards him. My goal is to raise his reading level by 1 grade level this year, and this will also help me to not overwhelm the student by giving him reading that, say, maybe too challenging for him, Or in the opposite case, giving him reading that is too easy, and then he's not learning as efficiently and effectively as possible. So here's a sample lesson that I came up with. What I did is I made a lesson plan. I chose a passage from readingatozee.com, and I chose a comprehensive quiz following that reading. So as you can see, teacher name, it's myself, and the lesson is in pronunciation and comprehensive as well. The subject is reading, and this was March 28th, 2019. So the outcomes, the learning outcomes, is the student will be able to pronounce larger words and more challenging words within an appropriate grade level passage. The vocabulary words that are in this passage that I selected, called firefighters, are chemicals, equipment, firefighters, fuel, machine, oxygen, pump, smother, and spray. And like I said, the materials was readingatozee.com. I chose this passage called firefighters. It is a level M passage in the grade 2 reading level. So prior knowledge, obviously he already knows how to sound out words and put sentences together, but he still struggles with pronunciation of the bigger words and comprehending larger passages. So I will ask him some basic comprehensive questions. In the lesson, I will talk about firefighters to kind of get the ball rolling and get them engaged. And my purpose overall is to get the students to learn these harder words and to comprehend more difficult passages overall. So I will write the vocab words that I previously mentioned on the board and ask the students if they know what they are, and if they do, to discuss them. But if they don't, I will discuss them and relate them to real-life examples. I will discuss the new words and tell them how they apply to the story after they have read the story. During reading itself, we will stop at each page and pick out specific words that the students don't currently know and discuss them. And I will have a short quiz at the end of the reading comprehension, over reading comprehension, and the vocab words. And some homework after the lesson. I will have the students make flashcards of the vocab words from firefighters. So back to the lesson. This is an example page of the passage that I have reading, What Makes Fire Burn, within this passage called Firefighters. This is an example of what they will be reading overall. And then the comprehensive quiz at the end is what you can see on the right, and that actually is included in the Reading A to Z itself. So I'll give that to them after the reading is over. Conclusion. I learned the criterion reference test, formative assessment, summative assessment, the snowman example. I learned how to give the Brigance reading comprehension test and how to analyze those results to make a specialized lesson plan towards a child. Now, what does research say about all of this? The research that I found, called Teaching Reading to Students with Learning Difficulties, says that for reading, teachers can place the student with the reading disability into a unique and independent reading program, or they can intervene and accommodate their current program. Teachers must familiarize themselves with the behavioral signs and symptoms in order to intervene and help the student early on. Recognizing these issues early will help parents push for the assistance their child needs and help the teacher to get started early on helping them meet their needs. Strategies to use for teachers could be reading material out loud, repeating key points, highlighting important info, copying class notes, extended time on homework and tests, reducing homework, etc. The list goes on and on. There is endless amount of things that teachers can do to accommodate for these students. And how does this relate? So this relates to what we've learned in class, and I have learned that observations are the key to figuring out how to effectively meet a child with a learning disability in reading and how to meet their specific needs. I've also learned that there are countless accommodations for the students that have learning disabilities in reading, as well as learning disabilities all across the board. All of this information from the research backs up what I have learned in my experience working with students with disabilities, as well as this class that I'm currently taking. Thank you.